Mia and Jason had been married for nearly 10 years. They had what most people would consider a perfect life, a beautiful home, two young children, and successful careers. But as the years passed, the spark between them began to fade. Jason, ever the dedicated husband and father, was often preoccupied with work, leaving Mia feeling neglected and lonely. It was during one of these lonely periods that Mia met David, a new colleague at her workplace. David was everything Jason had once been: attentive, charming, and full of energy. He noticed Mia in ways Jason no longer did, complimenting her on her outfits, remembering small details about her day, and always making her laugh. The attention was intoxicating, filling a void that had grown inside her over the years. What began as innocent flirtations soon developed into something far more serious. Mia found herself thinking about David constantly, yearning for the excitement he brought into her life. Eventually, they crossed a line. Meeting secretly after work, their relationship blossomed into a full-blown affair. Mia knew it was wrong, but the thrill and the feeling of being desired were too powerful to resist. Months went by, and Mia became skilled at living her double life. She would spend her days with Jason and the kids, playing the role of the perfect wife and mother, while sneaking away to be with David whenever she could. But secrets, as they always do, began to weigh heavily on her conscience. One morning, Mia woke up feeling unusually nauseous. At first, she brushed it off, assuming it was stress or perhaps something she ate. But when the symptoms persisted, she decided to take a pregnancy test, just to be sure. Her heart raced as she waited for the results. When the test confirmed her worst fear, she was overwhelmed with panic and dread. Mia knew that the child wasn't Jason's. They had been distant for months, their physical relationship almost non-existent. The baby could only be David's. Fear gripped her as she imagined the consequences of her actions. She considered her options, even contemplating ending the pregnancy, but the thought filled her with guilt and sadness. As the weeks passed, Mia's anxiety grew. She became increasingly withdrawn, struggling to keep up the facade of normalcy at home. Jason noticed the changes in her behavior, but Mia brushed off his concerns, attributing them to stress from work. Inside, she was a mess, constantly plagued by the knowledge of the life growing inside her and the lies she was telling. When Mia finally worked up the courage to tell David about the pregnancy, he was stunned. While he cared for Mia, he had never expected their affair to lead to something so life-altering. David suggested they run away together, start fresh in a new place. But Mia hesitated. She loved Jason and their children, and despite everything, she couldn't imagine tearing their family apart. Torn between two lives, Mia began to unravel. The guilt became too much to bear, and she found herself unable to sleep, eat, or concentrate. Her work suffered, and she became increasingly distant from everyone around her, including David. The affair, once a thrilling escape, now felt like a trap from which she couldn't escape. One evening, Jason approached Mia with concern in his eyes. He had noticed the changes in her, how she had become withdrawn, how her once joyful demeanor had faded. "Mia, is there something you need to tell me?" he asked gently, his voice filled with worry. Mia's heart pounded in her chest as she looked into Jason's eyes, the weight of her deception threatening to crush her. She wanted to tell him everything, to confess and beg for forgiveness, but fear held her back. Instead, she shook her head, offering a weak smile. "No, Jason, I'm just tired, that's all." But Jason wasn't convinced. He could sense that something was deeply wrong, and the seeds of doubt began to grow in his mind. As the months passed and Mia's pregnancy became more noticeable, she was forced to maintain her lie. Jason, unaware of the affair, was excited about the baby, though he couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Mia, on the other hand, was consumed by guilt and fear. The closer she got to her due date, the more she dreaded the inevitable moment when the truth would come out. Finally, the day arrived when Mia went into labor. Jason was by her side, holding her hand, completely unaware of the turmoil inside her. When their daughter was born, Jason was overjoyed, but Mia couldn't shake the dread in her heart. As Jason held the baby, Mia saw flashes of David in the child's features, a reminder of the betrayal she had committed. Over the next few weeks, the weight of her secret became unbearable. Mia was distant, avoiding Jason and struggling to bond with her daughter. The guilt gnawed at her, and she found herself crying in the middle of the night, unable to cope with the life she had created through her deceit. Finally, one night, as Jason held their newborn daughter, he turned to Mia with a serious expression. "Mia, I need to know the truth," he said softly. "Is there something you're not telling me?" Mia's heart raced as she realized the moment she had been dreading had finally arrived. Tears filled her eyes as she looked at Jason, the man she had once loved more than anything in the world. She knew there was no escaping the truth anymore. "Jason," she began, her voice trembling, "there's something I need to confess." She paused, struggling to find the words. "The baby. She's not yours." Jason's face went pale as the realization hit him. He looked down at the baby in his arms, then back at Mia, his eyes filled with a mixture of shock, betrayal, and heartbreak. "I'm so sorry," Mia whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I made a terrible mistake, and I've been living with this guilt every day. I never wanted to hurt you, but I was so lost." Jason stood in stunned silence, trying to process what he had just heard. The woman he had loved and trusted had betrayed him in the worst way possible. Without a word, he gently placed the baby in her crib and walked out of the room. For Mia, the silence that followed was deafening. She knew that she had destroyed everything: their marriage, their family, and the trust they had built over the years. The reality of her actions came crashing down on her, and she realized that she would have to live with the consequences of her choices for the rest of her life. In the days that followed, Jason moved out, leaving Mia to face the wreckage of their life together. The house that had once been filled with love and laughter was now a place of sorrow and regret. Mia was left alone with her guilt and the child who served as a constant reminder of the life she had lost. Every day, Mia thought about what she had done and the pain she had caused. She realized too late that the excitement and thrill of the affair had not been worth the cost. The love and stability she had taken for granted were gone, replaced by a void that could never be filled. Mia knew that she had no one to blame but herself. The choices she had made had led her down a path of destruction, and now she was left to live with the consequences. She had lost Jason, the man who had once been her everything, and no amount of regret could undo the damage she had caused. In the end, Mia was left with a life she no longer recognized, one defined by her mistakes and the profound regret that would haunt her forever.